I'm delighted to be the cleanup batter with white wine here. I think Napa is certainly known for the Cabernet, and I'm privileged to be one of the few Chardonnay participants there. I think it's probably a pity that there isn't more Chardonnay in Napa, and I think with Cabernet as king, some great Chardonnay sites have been planted to Cabernet in a way that maybe they shouldn't have been. Several of us have talked about the privilege of interacting with Andrei Chelychev. He was a Russian who was in the White Army. Most of those White Army, Tsarist army guys were killed by the Bolsheviks. And Andrei and his elite group were all sent off to Europe and not executed. Andrei said, I want to go to Paris and study microbiology. And they said, great, we have a job for you, a school for you in Bratislava to do animal husbandry. But that got him out of Russia. He found his way to the Institut Pasteur. And then when the Beaulieu family was seeking a French winemaker when Napa was having its post-Prohibition renaissance, they went to Pasteur and found this charming Russian guy, and instead of a Frenchman, they brought him, and he just transformed Napa and a lot of lives, including mine. So he was living on the street on the Stonecrest Drive below my grandparents' property, and when I got the bug to make wine, he was the only winemaker that I knew. So I asked Andrei, who was a social friend of my parents, what should we plant up at the top of the hill? And he said, without even looking at it, eventually we walked around, but he said, I've been up there a million times, you should plant Chardonnay. And I thought, oh, wow, this guy is really crazy, because there was almost no Chardonnay in Napa. There was Stony Hill and a few other places. Anyway, so it was due to Andrei that I have the good fortune of having this wine. Our place is the hill that separates Napa City from Coombsville. And it's basically a 300-foot tall mountain. Napa is basically at sea level, so we're just right above that. And it's a big volcanic rock, basically. There's almost no soil there. My grandfather, who was in the quarry business, bought this property thinking he would blow it up and use it for rock material. We were in the jetty building business, so you blow up the site, you put it in a dump truck, take it to a barge, Napa River, build a jetty. Anyway, he fell in love with the beauty of the place, luckily, and so our family developed itself up there. I was the third generation to be able to use the land, and the first to grow grapes there was cattle and quarter horses when I was a kid. Now my son farms it, so we're very proud that he's the fourth generation of our family to use this property. It's called the Judge because my dad was the judge in Napa, kind of the judge in Napa, and I made this wine in homage to him the year that after he died in 2001. I planted this vineyard with my bare hands and a lot of skepticism from my parents starting in 1975. So some of the vines are almost 50 years old now. The rest of it was planted and replanted in 1990, so those are sort of 30-something. So this is an old Chardonnay vineyard, and because of the extremely limited conditions of the soil there, or the lack of soil there, it grows, I could say, Antonio and I were looking at these vines a couple of months ago, and the oldest vines that are almost 50, the trunk is about as big as your wrist, where if it was a 50-year-old vine in Oakville, it would be like a tree. So it's just such a limited site that the vines have found their way, and the way they survive is to only grow about 1 ton to the acre. So this is a real micro crop, and part of the wine's intensity, I think, can be attributed to that. It's also made in an old-fashioned Burgundian tradition. I was as a young winemaker, spent a lot of time in Burgundy and brought those techniques back to Napa, I think. When I was at Newton, we made the first 2-year aged wild yeast unfiltered Chardonnay. And that was in fact made from the Judge grapes, because I was selling my family grapes to the Newton. Great for me to have that as my laboratory to learn how to do this. So it's a very old-fashioned way that I think we're like a Burgundy winemaking museum, because Burgundy is terrified of pre-mocs and everything else, and so they've changed the way they make the wine. But this is very old school. It's wild yeast, whole cluster pressed right into the barrel on the first day, no settling, and then the wine really does make itself. There's no yeast added. We just let it sit in the barrels. We do the bâtonnage. We do the stirring every couple of weeks for the first year, and then the wine is eventually racked off the lees when it's about 1.5 years old, and then goes back to barrel clean, and we are able to bottle it without any filtration. I should just tell you why it's called the Judge. One last paragraph. My dad was a war hero in World War II. Mutilé de guerre, lost a leg in the battle in the Pacific, and I was a Vietnam protester. So we defined the generation gap, and we kept our love for one another going by working together in the vineyard, which I was planting in the 70s, just after we got over all those problems. And I could say to my dad, go down, way down in that corner and run the burn pile, and I'll do the work up here, and I'll see you for lunch. And we'd have a quick lunch, not argue about politics. And anyway, so that's how it came about. And when he died in 2001, we'd been making the wine already for about 6 years at that point. And the Chardonnay was a blend of Hudson and Hyde, 2 deluxe growers in Carneros and my college buddies. And then this vineyard at Stonecrest. And so I just took a couple of barrels worth of my favorite part of the vineyard and made this wine just to give to the law school friends. And then it was discovered by various colleagues of Antonio's back in the day, and we were kind of obliged to make the wine. So I'm very grateful to all of you guys who fished it out of the cellar. It was one of those, let's taste all the barrels, and it was like, whoa, what is this? So anyway, we've been making it now since 2002. So the Judge. Thank you.